Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's fact. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Episode 108 of the Last Round Podcast. Thanks again, guys, for joining us. We were on here with Dougie Fischer for about maybe a good 20 minutes, Dougie, before we actually started recording, just talking boxing and talking life and what's going on, right?
Anything I said, feel free to use. I say what I say. I don't care. Seriously, whatever you did record, it's if you want to do something.
Oh, no. We didn't even start recording it until I started introducing the show right now.
Oh, you missed out on some gold, man. You got to keep that on all the time. I used to tell, speaking of Gary Randall in House of Boxing, I used to tell him, don't be intimidated with that camera, because he was the camera guy. He was the webmaster and the camera guy. And he would get around some of these dudes, Fernando Vargas, who he became friends with and became very comfortable with. But other fighters, he would get intimidated around, particularly if he was out of his element. So we went to Puerto Rico exclusive to film Felix Trinidad. And he was in awe with Trinidad. He was super buddies with Fernando Vargas, and Trinidad just obliterated Vargas in a great fight. And he had weird mixed feelings about that. You know what I mean? Like, damn, I'm in the enemy's camp and all. But Tito was just such a gregarious guy. And as soon as he saw Gary and he saw that Gary had a camera, he went up there and Gary's like, what the hell, and he's going off in Puerto Rico in Spanish. And it wasn't anything threatening or anything like that. He was just excited. He was in training camp. And he wanted to let his fans know, I think it was right after he lost to Hopkins, and he wanted everyone to know, no, I'm not done. I'm going to fight again. I'm going to fight for Puerto Rico. I can kind of pick up some of what he was saying and all. And he was so, I never seen him that animated. And Gary didn't have it on at all. It was just like this with the camera. And I'm like, dude, put that shit on. That's what you're here for. Yeah. And unless they tell you this is off the record, you can't use this. Use whatever you can. Don't let anything go to waste. The stuff that you think is not important in the moment will become history 10 and 20 years down the line. Every little shred. If you go back, if you look, there's not a lot. Like Trinidad and his dad was a control freak. And they didn't even let HBO come in and film Trinidad very much. So it was like a big deal for us to get that okay, to come to the island and to come to their training compound and to be able to talk to everybody. And I had folks there who spoke the language and were boxing guys. But they treated us like family. They just took us in like family, and nobody else had that kind of stuff. And so it's like, you don't really see a lot of that. If somebody's going to do a documentary one day, and they should, and they probably will, on Felix Trinidad, they'll find there's not a whole lot of training footage of the guy. Even like that whole buildup before the Bernard Hopkins fight. You may have heard of it. You may see some video footage of Bernard, I think during their Miami press conference, slapping the Puerto Rican flag out of Tito's hand and getting him really flustered and pissed off. It was all part of psychological warfare. Bernard is such a genius. It wasn't even about making Tito mad. It was about making his fans mad. And then his fans demand, Tito, you got to kill this guy. You got to decapitate him for the pride of our culture. You got to do it for the culture. You got to take him down for Puerto Rico because he disrespected us and our flag. He spat on all of us, And Tito took that. That was Tito's strength. Was his fan support and his cultural pride, And I think it worked. I mean, I think it was a factor in what played out that night when they finally got in the ring. But there was a press conference on the island in Puerto Rico. I can't remember where it was, maybe San Juan, because Tito said, you won't do that to me in Puerto Rico. You wouldn't dare slap the flag out of my hand, and he did. Bernard's crazy. He went ahead and did it, and there was like a little riot, and he and his team were literally chased out of that arena. I mean, chased like with the intent to, like a mob. Like had somebody slipped and fell, they would have been a goner. Like they had to get the fuck out of there. Super dramatic, crazy stuff, but there's no footage of this. If there is, there's some there's some whatever. There's just like a clip here and there. But if you search YouTube and try to find, Hopkins, Trinidad, whatever, press conference riot, whatever you want to call it, melee, you're not going to find nothing. If somebody was there doing that, I mean, that footage would be gold.
Right.
I imagine. Yeah. I wonder if somebody does have it.
You see, Mike, you got to start recording from the second we turn this thing up.
Yeah. Especially if some old head or somebody who's on his way to being an old head just starts riffing. That's another, by the way, that's a regret that I have. It's a regret that I have not sitting down and recording conversations with old boxing heads like Don Chargan, passed away a couple years ago. Jimmy Glenn died of COVID-19 earlier this year. There were a lot of old heads in the gym that I used to talk to. Sometimes I was taking notes. There was a guy named Ray Barnes who fought Sugar Ray Robinson, who was a fountain of boxing knowledge. I used to talk to him. Hedgeman Lewis, who was a former welterweight contender, fought some great fighters and was a tremendous fighter himself. A lot of conversations with them. I wish I would have at least recorded it audio, and I didn't do that. And if I could change anything, go back in time and change anything, I'd get them on camera.
Right.
I'd spend money on some like really good high definition video or even film. Just get them on camera, because the knowledge and the stories that they had, it hasn't been passed on. Yeah. Right.
Well, jumping right into our normal routine here on the last round. This past Friday, the 4th of December, from the Wembley Arena on DAZN, Billy Joe Saunders remains undefeated with his 12-round unanimous decision win over Martin Murray, who takes the 6th loss of his career. And Saunders retains his WBO super middleweight title. Dougie, before you give us your actual take on it.
Not much of a take.
Right. I mean,
Billy Joe can box. He's a good boxer. Boxes his ass off. He's world class.
He needs to fight somebody significant next, right? There's no way he can't.
Listen, guys like Billy Joe Saunders and Daniel Jacobs, they are very good. On their best night, they're as good as the elite boxers within their weight classes, some of whom we consider pound for pound. They're in the pound for pound rankings. They're every bit as good, and they're a threat to those elite fighters. But whatever their psychological makeup is, they have to be threatened. They have to feel like they're in with a threat for them to really be on point and be at their best. Before Danny Jacobs fought Gennady Golovkin, he was like, "This, I don't want to get knocked out. I've been knocked out before. I know what that feels like. The whole world shits on you. I can't have that again." He went to the snack gym in the Bay Area, got down with the right nutrition, had like a perfect camp, the perfect sparring partners. I think, what's his name? Derevyanchenko was one of the sparring partners. Who was that little guy? He was like 5'4" from Georgia, not Georgia the state, Georgia the country. Went to jail for like mob shit.
Oh gosh, what's his name?
Kurtzidze? Was that it? Last name?
When he was like a mafia bodyguard.
Yeah, like hard, like just a hard dude. I mean, and you could tell with the fights. Like, actually, Billy Joe was supposed to fight him. He went Billy Joe's mandatory. That was going to be interesting. But yeah, he just had these hard Eastern European dudes as sparring partners. He had Chris Algieri in there making all his meals. He was doing all this high-tech training with Victor Conte and Victor Conte's staff. And he showed up, man. And he fought the fight of his career. And even though he lost, it was like a moral victory. And really, he's been on this extended victory lap ever since, because of that. His pay scale just skyrocketed after Triple G and getting the shot at Canelo and all that. It's all tied together. And the 3-fight contract with HBO before HBO got out of business, you know? So, you know, when these guys, when they turn up and show up, they become special fighters and they get treated that way. And Billy Joe Saunders kind of squandered it, but he felt threatened going to Montreal to fight David Lemieux. Lemieux's not like, you know, a world-class boxer, but the dude can punch. He's dang, he can't put you to sleep. So nobody wants to get starched. And, you know, he knew he was in the other guy's hometown, so he couldn't give away rounds. I was there. You know, I was in Montreal for that. Or it was actually like a suburb of Montreal. And Billy Joe boxed his ass off. You know, it wasn't like exciting in terms of action, but he was so on point that he could showboat like Muhammad Ali or Pernell Whitaker, and that stuff went viral. And he had goodwill for the first time in a long time, at least on this side of the pond. And he's since squandered it, and you squander it when you fight down to the level of your opposition. And that's what Jacobs did against Gabe Rosado. No offense to Gabe, but Gabe's really a gatekeeper. And Gabe might have won that fight. You know, kudos to Gabe. I thought he boxed really well. I thought he actually boxed better than Daniel. Daniel just had like the talent, the athletic ability to avoid getting hurt, and that's what he did. That's how he used his talent. And Billy Joe Saunders, he showed up a little bit for Murray, but I mean, he's not facing the Murray that fought Triple G or fought Felix Sturm or Sergio Martinez. You know, it's not 2013 or 2014. This dude he's shop worn. He's no longer a top 10 middleweight contender. And so it wasn't BJ's A game. Maybe it was his B+ game. Because he looked good, but still not sharp and fast as we know he can be. So it was kind of lackluster. It was one of those fights. If you watched 2 or 3 rounds, you saw the fight. Yeah. It was just rinse and repeat through 12 rounds. So, you know, that's my take on both those dudes, you know. And I don't know if I want to see them fight each other, by the way. I want them, if I'm going to tune in to a Saunders fight or a Jacobs fight, I want to see them in with a threat. I want to see them in there with a Jamal Charlo, Triple G, somebody who they think, you know, Jacobs is a super middleweight. So for Jacobs, put it, him with David Benavidez, somebody who brings it, who has that attitude, like I'm going to destroy you, who's big, strong, fast, even though he's big, and throws deals in volume. Like I want to see how Jacobs utilizes his talent and his experience against that type of style. I don't care to see 2 stylists. I really don't. And I know if you're a boxing purist, you're supposed to just totally be into, ring generalship for the sake of ring generalship, but punches win. That's what wins rounds. That's what's supposed to win rounds. And I don't mind boxers. I don't mind technicians. One of my favorite fights is Mike McCallum versus James Toney, the first fight. Second fight wasn't bad. But give me that type of all technician matchup, or Juan Manuel Marquez versus Marco Antonio Barrera. Like that was a boxing match, but they are both proud, intense guys, and they let their hands go. If one of them is going to be a technician that's looking to play keep away, then the other side of that equation, I want an aggressor. I want a killer. Man. I want a pressure fighter, a volume puncher, a puncher, a KO puncher, something like that.
I always wonder about Billy Joe. He's like 30-0, and he kind of reminds me of that, that kid at school that's like really, really fast, but he never wants to face the really fast kids because he always wants to be, like a big fish in a little pond. And because every time he's linked to a big fight, it's always there's not enough money, I haven't got a long enough camp, stuff like that. So I do wonder, is he ever going to face these big names?
I want to say yes, because the clock is ticking. He's not getting any younger. He's been around for 30 fights. and he's in his 30s now, right?
Right.
Early, at least his early 30s. He's got to get with it. And it was on the table. He was supposed to fight Canelo. That's a big fight. I mean, that was all but done. It was never announced because of the pandemic, but he had already moved his camp to Las Vegas before it was officially canceled. So he was getting ready for that. And I know it was, a day or two away from being officially announced when it wasn't announced,
Right.
So he was ready to make that leap, and hopefully he's ready to make a similar leap. I don't know if he's going to get Canelo. But maybe he can. Maybe Canelo will have a goal to be, to say goodbye to the 160-pound division if he beats Callum Smith and wins the WBA and the Ring Magazine super middleweight title. They might just stay at 168 pounds, and maybe he'll have a goal to unify titles. And maybe because he's a free agent, it's a realistic goal. So maybe within the context of that plan, maybe Billy Joe Saunders gets a second chance at Canelo. We'll see what happens.
Well, who do you think is more likely for Canelo, assuming he beats Callum Smith on December 19th? Will it be Billy Joe Saunders next or the Triple G trilogy?
I think there's more money involved for the Triple G trilogy. I think DAZN, even though he's not exclusive to DAZN anymore, they invested so much in trying to make that third match that they'll do whatever they can, come out the pocket as much as they can, promise him the moon. If he does that. And listen, they're both fighting this month, just a day apart. They share a weekend. So December 18 and 19, it's a big drama show and the Canelo show. And if Triple G can recapture his form and look good or look dominant against Sarametta, and if Canelo beats Callum Smith, there's going to be a big push for it, and there might be some kind of, there might be back and forth as to what the weight class is, and they'll probably settle in on like 164, 164 and a half or something like that. Cause if Canelo beats Smith, he's probably going to stay at super middleweight, like I said, or, at Triple G's age, he's just like, what the hell? Let's do it at super middleweight. I'll weigh in whatever I weigh in. If I weigh in at 162, so be it. Let's just do this. Right. There's, DAZN's been trying to make that fight for the longest time, and they've got so much programming that they like shoulder programming that's in the can that they've been shooting for 2 years. I know because I've sat down and been interviewed for some of this stuff. I mean, they hired like animation companies to make like little cartoons of these guys and like their whole history and just everything. Like they're ready to do it. That's why they signed both these guys and went crazy with the guarantees and all, because they felt that the third Canelo Triple G fight would, get them the most subscribers, and who knows, maybe they're right about that, but they'll do whatever they can to try to make that fight. But if not, I would say maybe Caleb Plant, because he's already been mentioned. He's been mentioned before. Canelo was a free agent. He was mentioned after Canelo became a free agent. And, I guess it depends on what kind of a package that the PBC can present to Canelo. They might not want to do a one-off. It might not be worth it for them to do a one-off and pay Canelo what Canelo wants to get paid. They may want to say, do a three fight deal, and maybe you start with Caleb Plant, or you start with somebody else. You start with Anthony Durrell, and then it's Caleb Plant, and then David Benavidez, and they figure, they can build up. They have enough time to build up the all Mexico showdown between Canelo and Benavidez, and maybe by that time there are no more COVID restrictions. There's no lockdowns, and they could do that at AT&T Stadium in front of 80,000 or something crazy like that. I don't know.
Right.
And maybe he's okay with that. Or, maybe he's like, no, I'm Sugar Ray Leonard. I do one-offs. Nobody gets options on me. I'm at that level, and I ain't fighting unless I get $30 million, and so be it. In that case, then I don't know, But I think, I would say Triple G is realistic. I think Caleb Plant is realistic. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, the matchup I would want to see the most is Canelo back at 160 pounds against Jermall Charlo. That's a great Texas fight. And I just like that because it's two boxer punchers, but they have different styles. Mm-hmm. You know, and Charlo, that classic stand up 1-2 straight down the middle, you know, kind of boxing from a distance or mid range. And, you know, Canelo is like the counter puncher with the head and upper body movement and, you know, the defensive prowess, more experience. Somebody also, you know, comfortable in close quarters and a good body puncher. It's just like, you know, when you think about it, how that matchup plays out, it's just more explosive than a lot of the other matchups.
Right. Yeah, definitely an interesting time in that division between 160 and 168. But, you know, I'm sure there's enough options for Canelo since he's been the top
You know what?
dog.
Jamal's 6 foot tall. I mean, right. And he's 30 now, and
I could see that.
I wouldn't be shocked if he stepped up to super middleweight for Canelo. That's worth it.
I think he would.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially now that Canelo's kind of technically essentially a free agent. Like it's a lot easier maybe to grab him and bring him over to Showtime or Fox or what have you.
Yeah.
So it could work. Moving on. Also this past weekend from the Church House in London on ESPN Plus, Anthony Yarde suffers a second loss of his career, professional loss to Lyndon Arthur via split decision. Dougie, do you think Yarde was ever the real deal, or what do you think?
I think there's athletic talent there. I mean, he didn't have like an extensive amateur career, right? Did he?
No.
And I think he was a late comer to boxing. So just athletically speaking, he's a strong, formidable athlete. He decided to put boxing gloves on, and at a certain level, he can whack guys out. And then if he steps up beyond that level, he can get taken to school. And, you know, it's obvious that he has trouble with guys who box from range and utilize lateral movement and are not going to stand right in front of him or not going to take the fight directly to him. And he has the kind of temperament it's a combination. It's his temperament and it's his boxing acumen right now. He's not going to cut the ring off. He's not going to go after you.
You can't.
He's not going to press you hard. He's just one of those dudes who kind of walks around. And that's part of him conserving his energy as well. Because sometimes explosive guys who have that type of musculature built like that, they get tired. They burn out. You know, they get muscle they get, what's the word? They get like arm weary, you know, after a few offensive bursts or whatever. And over the second half of a fight, they get tired. I mean, that was basically the strategy for Sergey Kovalev, was don't be the crusher. You know, you're an experienced guy. You got a jab. Keep away from this dude. Keep away from him. Work the jab. Take him into deep water. Kovalev had to survive a scary moment himself with the body shot. But once Kovalev got over that, he went back to dominating the fight. And, you know, he knocked him out with a jab. And it's not because Kovalev's, I know he has a heavy jab, but he's not like Sonny Liston with the jab. But that jab took out Yarde because it was the 11th round and Yarde was gassed. He was taken into deep water and he was drowned, you know. So guys like that, they have to be careful of their energy. And because of that, he's never going to he's not going to be Joe Frazier. He's not going to fight with that type of urgency. So he's limited, you know, and he's a guy that despite fighting for Kovalev's WBO title, I don't think he's ever been higher than number 10 on Ring Magazine's light heavyweight rankings. Never been. He's been like number 10 and then he's off. And then whoever else was number 10 loses or, you know, goes down a weight or whatever, and he gets back on or whatever. But he's never been, I don't think he's ever been higher than 9 or 10 on there. And that's a reason. He's more of like a fringe contender.
What do you think? Because somebody like Anthony Joshua has also gotten a criticism like that, saying that people have said that he's more of an athlete, who just found ways to be able to fight. What do you think the difference between somebody like an AJ who, you know, has an athletic build, is essentially an athlete, is in comparison to Anthony Yarde?
AJ is an Olympic gold medalist. I know he didn't have an extensive amateur career, but he was good enough. You know, he was in the right place at the right time. won when he needed to win, and got in there, got into the 2012 games. And, he was developed early in his career. He was Ring Magazine's Prospect of the Year in 2014. And to that point, he hadn't really fought anybody, right? He fought the usual suspects. Mm-hmm. But by the end of 2015, he had the fight with Dillian White, his 2 prospects, and he had to survive some adversity there. And then, he had the title fight with what's his name? Prince Charles.
Martin.
One of the worst title holders of all time.
The IBF, yeah.
Name. Yeah, I mean, he's just a guy.
Charles Martin.
He shouldn't have had that belt. He shouldn't have had that belt. It was stripped from Tyson Fury. The IBF, you know how they do. It's like, oh, you just won this belt? Okay, defend it in 30 days. No, yank. And I wouldn't even mind that if their mandatory contender was a worthy contender, but it was that guy and Czar.
The guy who broke his, who damaged his ligaments.
That's how that dude lost. What was his name? Glaskov? Tsar Glaskov? Yeah. Whatever. It's no point in remembering their names. They're not good. Whatever. He got a belt, and then, he was fighting solid guys up until, Vladimir Klitschko, and he's fighting a legend, a future Hall of Famer. And so he's different from Yard in that if you look at Yard's resume, he's got one legit contender, one legit top light heavyweight, the old man Kovalev, who knocked him out. And then everybody else on his resume, they're not legitimate contenders. Even this last guy he fought, that was a domestic level dude. He's not known here in the United States. And he's definitely not ranked in the Ring's light heavyweight top 10 or ESPN's light heavyweight top 10 or the Transnational Boxing Rankings light heavyweight top 10. Maybe now he's in there, like at number 10. You know what I'm saying? But he wasn't a legit contender. So I don't really compare them. Yeah, they do have the physique. And yeah, sometimes I've looked at Joshua and thought, you're too heavy or you've got too much muscle. You're muscle bound. It's too much. But his resume does speak for itself. I mean, I think he deserves to be number 1. Like, in Ring Magazine's rankings, the champion is Tyson Fury. Well, I believe Anthony Joshua deserves to be number 1 ahead of Deontay Wilder because he's just fought more top 10 heavyweights. He's fought top 10 heavyweights and legit gatekeepers, right? Guys like Carlos Takam and, those hard heads like that, so.
Dougie, you mentioned, obviously touching on the Ring Magazine title. Has there ever been in the history of the Ring, has there ever been 2 fighters who have approached you or somebody high up within the Ring Magazine company to say, hey, we just want to fight for the Ring Magazine title and no other title?
Yeah, Marco Antonio Barrera was like that. He didn't. He had bad experiences with certain sanctioning organizations. Didn't feel he was treated right, and then just later on in his career, after definitely, if not after the Morales trilogy, then after the second bout with Morales, he just said, "I'm not paying sanctioning fees." Like the WBO did right by Marco. They were very loyal to him, and those were the first world titles that he held. And Marco had some kind of feud. I don't know if it was Marco that had the feud with the WBC or if it was Barrera's manager / promoter at the time, Ricardo Maldonado. I think Maldonado had some kind of beef with Jose Suleiman, but whatever. They didn't want to fight for that title. And when they beat Eric Morales in the rematch, they dropped it. They dropped the green belt. And then I think Prince Nassim Hamed, I think he had let the belts go. God, he had won a bunch of belts, but when he fought, you guys could check BoxRec on this. I think when Hamed fought Barrera, he may not have, maybe he just had the IBF, the IBO belt or something like that. But whatever, it's like Barrera beat Hamed, and he just said, I'm the featherweight champ. I'm the lineal champion. I beat this guy. I beat Hamed, and Hamed beat all the other the alphabet title holders. He beat all of this. So I'm the man. I don't need 2001. And in 2002, Nigel Collins reinstated Ring Magazine's championship policy. And so Barrera was the ring. He just was awarded the Ring Magazine featherweight title. And then anybody who was an undisputed champion, like Bernard Hopkins and Lennox Lewis, they were christened Ring Magazine champions. And then from that point on, anyone else who was going to win a vacant Ring Magazine belt, it had to be number 1 versus number 2, or in some cases, number 1 versus number 3. So it's rare. It's rare, but it has happened. It has happened in the past.
Dougie, it seems to be that a lot of the fighters who are actually kind of, boxing historians, Tyson Fury, Teofimo Lopez, show the ring a lot of respect. But why is it that it's not always announced on fight night that the title is actually on the line? And why?
That's the decision by that specific promoter or that network, one or the other.
BoxRec don't show it on there either.
No, they're not giving us love, man. Maybe they don't know. I don't know. Yeah, no, it's just the way it is. Like in some, it depends on the region too. Like in some regions of the world, it's like if they're fighting for the ring title, they're like, oh, well, that's not. And they just think of it like, well, that's just a recognition by this English magazine. You know what I mean? And like, it's like, oh, well, that's nice. And they'll get the belt and they'll smile with it on fight night when they win it, and then you'll never see it again, right? Maybe they'll bring it in with them at their next fight, but they're not going to go out and do a photo shoot with the ring title, right? Or they're not going to do what Teofimo Lopez did and take to social media and like, yeah, I got the belt. Right. They're not going to do that, And then like with the Japanese fighters, they're like, wow, this is a big deal. And we're so humbled and thank you. But they don't do that. But what they will do is they'll have a press conference and they'll take photos for the newspapers and magazines out there holding the belt, and stories will be written on it. And it'll be in newspapers and that kind of thing. And they'll do a photo shoot, so that they have it and then we can use it. You know what I mean? So I know Hiroto Kiyoguchi, who's the Ring Magazine junior flyweight champ, he did that. Naoya Inoue did that. But one thing I noticed with Inoue and with the Japanese media, it was more important to them for Inoue to be on the cover of Ring Magazine than to win the Ring Magazine championship belt. And it's more important to them right now for Inoue to be number 1 in our pound for pound rankings than winning another Ring Magazine title. And they don't care if somebody else views them as number 1 pound for pound. Like I believe Inoue is number 1 pound for pound in the transnational boxing rankings. So when they talk to me, like I recognize them. I know who's on that ratings panel, and I'm like, yeah. In fact, we share. Some of you're on it. Yeah. And Adam Abramowitz, he's on it. He's on both. You know what I mean? He's on the Ring and he's on the Transnational Boxing Rankings Board. But, when these journalists talk to me about it, I say, well, he'll get there. And hey, he's already there with the Transnational Boxing Rankings. And they're like, no, it's you got, and it's part of the culture. It's because the Ring is so old. Like, no, you guys have the history, So if our guy gets to number 1 in your rankings, he measures with the greats. We can say he's number 1 pound for pound, just as Mike Tyson was number 1 pound for pound, and Pernell Whitaker and Roy Jones Jr. and Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather and Oscar De La Hoya and Shane Mosley and all, like that lineage is very much important to them. And then with the British boxing community in general, like Ring Magazine, they're like, and again, it goes back to history. It's like the modern boxing rules. Modern boxing was born in England. The oldest belt is the Lonsdale belt.
Did you hear that, Danny?
Right? The oldest belt is the Lonsdale belt. And it when a British fighter wins the Ring Magazine title, they really embrace it. And it's a big deal. And it's a big deal to their management, and it's a big deal to their promoter, and it'll be mentioned, and out here in America, it's hit or miss. You can get lucky with a Teofimo Lopez, who's like, I love the ring belt. This belt means more to me than the other belts, and I don't care. I'm going to go ahead and say that, And I like it. And I like his reasoning because he says, I love my belts because boxers love belts. Boxers, I mean, it means a lot. It's like, that's their college degree, their master's degree or whatever. They worked hard for that. So they want to show it off. It means something. But what he says, he's like, listen, I love the WBC title, but everybody gets one. It's like everybody. I got one. I got something there.
There it is.
They know how to market. I respect their game. Like they're good with that. They're real good with that. But yeah, they'll jump into they'll come up with the belt for Mayweather and Paul. They'll do that, and they did that for other YouTubers, and they did that for the Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr. exhibition, and whatever big event, whether it's their fight, their champions are involved or not, they'll get involved, and he'll be, and the promoters embrace it, and the networks embrace it because it adds luster to their event, and it's worth it to them, and so they'll mention it. I'll see press releases, and they're mentioning, it's WBC Silver Championship or Diamond Belt or WBC whatever, Intercontinental, what have you. It's not just the WBC. It's the same thing with, the other organizations, It'll be the junior. I don't know. I've seen some weird stuff. Like I don't know what it means. It's like it's like, what will it be? It'll be like a kind of USBA, NABF, NABA level title, but it's not. It's like it's not the interim. It's the, I don't know. It's not quite. It's not quite a lesser title. It's not even like the full national title. You know what I'm saying? It's like something. It's on the way. It's not quite the NABA belt, but it's the NA. It's
LA County.
I don't know. I mean, they might as well do that. I mean, LA is a big enough county, but yeah. So I see where Lopez is coming from, because if you get the Ring Magazine belt, it's because you're the champion, and you're beyond. You've already proven yourself as a major world title holder. Mm-hmm. You generally have to beat another major world title holder to earn the Ring Magazine championship. So it's like we don't pass it out. It's like if you're not a world champion, then you've been pound for pound number one for a long time, or you're fighter of the year. It's a big fucking deal. It's like you had to really achieve to get there, and most don't. So you're special. So and what fighter doesn't want to be special?
Dougie, Tyson Fury has 2, right?
He does. Yeah.
What's the most that anyone's ever had?
Oh, that's a good question. See, Pacquiao, when Pacquiao beat Barrera, he became the Ring Magazine featherweight champion. I think when he beat Juan Manuel Marquez in the rematch, he became the junior lightweight champion. What else does he have? When he beat Ricky Hatton, he became the junior welterweight champion. So there's 3 right there. Mayweather was the Ring Magazine lightweight champion when he beat Castillo. And then he won, no, definitely not for 140 pounds. At welterweight, maybe he's got, and I think when he beat Canelo at junior. So he's got at least 3.
3?
He's got, at least 3 divisions, but he might be a 2-time, I think Floyd might be a 2-time welterweight, Ring Magazine welterweight champion. So he's got a nice little collection there. That's a good question, and you got to think about the old timers too, so like Sugar Ray Robinson was a 5-time middleweight champion, and he was ring middleweight champion that whole time. That took place during the 50s. And the Ring Magazine belt was given out to the man in each division. So Ray Robinson has 1 welterweight title and 5 middleweight titles. So Robinson, who a lot of people, myself included, think is the greatest ever. He's got 6 of them. Yeah.
Well, the next time you're on, Dougie, you can hopefully have that answer.
I can research. Yeah, it does. That's the beauty of the internet, man. You can just find it.
Right.
And if I can't find it on the internet, I can
pull it up somewhere.
Yeah. I got all this stuff just sitting around my desk, man. Look at this. I can just look in here and.
Definitely got everything there, don't you?
Yeah. What is this? This is from December 1951.
I've got that one.
So
actually, Robinson. That was actually. Yeah, this is the year that Robinson won the middleweight title. So he would be might have been his first middleweight championship. But I'll find out. It's not hard to find out. That's the beauty.
So for our audio listeners who are listening to the audio portion, Dougie's showing us a collection of his historic magazines, and now Mike goes also wants to go grab his.
Nice! You remember KO? You got any KO? Oh, I like that. Yeah. What's the one with the with Frazier and Ali on there? Is that's like a anniversary or memorial, like a special edition?
20-year edition.
The 20-year edition. Ah. The Big 5-0 is coming up.
He's got that one too.
Oh yeah, that one. That's nice. Yeah, I like that. I remember seeing that one.
Yeah, we just need to do a whole episode one day just dedicated to all these magazines. You got enough content there, Dougie.
Yeah, well, the publication turns 99 in February.
Mm-hmm.
From that point on, it's like a countdown to 100 years, the centennial mark.
Right.
So we'll be doing a lot of stuff like that, putting a lot of stuff on the website and social media, and I'll be doing stuff, I'll be doing stuff just, via my own social media and stuff like that.
And with us.
Yeah. And with you guys, whoever cares about this kind of stuff. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like we were talking about the ring championship, and it resonates with some and it doesn't with others. The Jermell Charlo won the junior middleweight championship, and it's like, I know he got the belt, but the way I know he got the belt is because Regis Prograis put it out on his Instagram story, because he moved back to Texas and he went to visit them. Prograis is one of those guys who's told me, and his people have said, man, if we ever make the ring cover, if we ever achieve anything to make the ring cover, let us know, because we'll do a whole photo shoot for it. And if we win the ring championship, we'll do a whole thing, a big presentation and all that. I said, well, beat Josh Taylor, man. It was right before we fought Josh Taylor. And, he almost did. He came close, but
he still has time.
Oh, totally. No, I think he will be. Eventually he'll get his hand, and he'll appreciate it, because he's into the history. He reads a lot, and he's into boxing history. So it's, he's one of these guys watching Henry Armstrong films and stuff like that. So but he's like that. And other guys, they're about the here and now, and, for whatever reason, whatever, they might just feel like, no, I'm not feeling the ring or whatever.
Right.
But others do. And it's not like, if somebody goes out and does it on their own, like Team Lopez, they just recently did a shoot, with the ring title. We'll use that stuff, but it's not like we're playing favorites with them. It's just, we're capitalizing on their enthusiasm. Same thing with Tyson Fury. Like, he'll put it out there, and if you put it out there, sure, we'll run with it. Why not? And obviously, if they like us, we like them.
Right. Absolutely. Speaking of Texas, the most significant fight of this past weekend, in the welterweight division from the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, on Fox pay-per-view, with fans in attendance. I believe 25,000 fans, just about.
That's significant. That's pretty good.
It was pretty significant, right? Yeah. Errol Spence Jr. retains his WBC and IBF welterweight world titles as he gets the unanimous decision win over a game Danny Garcia. What would you in my opinion, Dougie, and you tell me if you agree with this, you too, Mike. I believe that Spence really took over after about halfway through, maybe like the 5th or 6th, because especially as they were showing the punch stats, CompuBox and everything, because the punch stats were pretty in terms of landing punches, they were kind of close in their connects. But after about the 6th round, you really started seeing Spence kind of go away with it. What do you think?
I thought Spence looked good. I thought his form looked like identical to his form against Sean Porter. He just wasn't in with as an aggressive opponent. And so the fight wasn't as hard. So in that respect, Garcia was probably the right guy to come back at if they weren't 100% sure he was recovered. And I think to go into that match, they knew physically he was fine, but maybe psychologically, just in case he's hesitant in some way, or, you psychologically, maybe they didn't know how he was going to react to the first heavy shot, and Garcia has that heavy punch. So definitely Garcia was an opponent that they could respect and really give him a reason to train and be 110%, once they step through those rings. But I thought he was in command. Honestly, from the first round to the 12th round, I thought Spence was in command. I thought it was a competitive one-sided fight. And I thought Garcia boxed well. And for the first time in a long time, I saw Garcia's boxing IQ and I saw his experience. And I liked the way he would block certain punches. I liked his punch selection. His footwork looked really good. And those are things I normally don't notice with the Garcia fight because, sometimes he's not in with the same level of competition. So when he's fighting Ivan Redkach, it just looks like he's just gonna bludgeon this guy for 12 rounds. And I'm not really paying attention, but he was in with an elite boxer in Spence, and he's good enough to hold his own. He's good enough to where an elite boxer has to respect him. Can't just run in there and try to overwhelm him. And he's tough. I think he's got one of the best chins in boxing. And he could take body shots. I thought his body shots were nice. He had a nice body shot selection, and he landed good single shots to the head. Just wasn't enough. He's the guy. He's a little bit shorter, definitely with the shorter arms, and he was comfortable boxing at range and moving. And that's not, you're not going to beat Spence like that, unless you're built like Tommy Hearns, and you're taller and rangier and you're fast and you can catch him from the outside with incredible power. You're not gonna clip Errol Spence. You're gonna have to initiate a little bit more and make it physical and bully him back the way Sean Porter did. I thought Sean Porter won rounds against Spence, a lot of rounds, as a matter of fact. I don't think Garcia did, and I think his father recognized that, and his father, for the most part, kept it real between rounds. He said, Danny, and Twitter timeline, it had had it like 7-5. I didn't see that fight. Honestly, it became kind of monotonous to me. I'm going to be honest. I stopped scoring it after a while. At the end of the fight, I'm like, if it's 118 to 110, I'm not mad at that. That feels about right. And the first score announced was 117, 111. I'm like, yeah, that it looked like 9 rounds to 3 fight. That's what it looked like to me.
Dougie, what do you think about one of the more vocal criticisms of Danny Garcia? I think it actually came from his father, and then obviously some fans online, however you want to take their opinion, was saying that he didn't let his hands go. But I just felt that, like, he, at least in my opinion, he saw obviously Spence as a dangerous cat, and he just couldn't get in. He couldn't get in, and he was trying to take risks and find those windows. Yeah. But they weren't absolutely, golden windows for him to take those shots. Yeah. I mean, what do you think about that?
I agree. It's kind of like Vasily Lomachenko against Teofimo Lopez. It's like he knew it. He felt it early. Said, nah, if I try to take it to this guy now, I may not make the distance. I might get beat up. One single shot. Now, naturally bigger than Lomachenko. I mean, he came up from 140, but he's been established at 147 for a long time, and he's a strong, powerful guy at welterweight. So he didn't have to be as concerned as Lomachenko was against Teofimo Lopez, who's a huge lightweight, and explosive, probably more explosive with single punches and counter punches than Spence is. Spence deals more in volume, but has really good technique and has very heavy hands. But, he recognized, I think, early on that it's better for him to bide his time, and I think he was hoping he could hurt him with one of these counter shots or one of those sweeping overhand rights that Spence kind of turned with, that grazed him. And maybe once or twice seemed to momentarily stun Spence, but he wasn't able to discombobulate Spence. He wasn't able to rock him to the point where, okay, now I'm going to rush him and jump on him. I think had he done that, he would have went for it, but he never got that moment. That opportunity never presented himself. But the problem is sometimes you have to make your opportunities. And sometimes in order to make those opportunities happen, you have to roll the dice. You have to take risks. And he didn't take those risks, and he didn't really bite down on his mouthpiece and really take it to Spence until the final 10 seconds. It's kind of frustrating, really, to be quite honest. It's like,
right.
You had this in you. Could have done it at the start of the round. Could have done it in round 10, round 8. I didn't expect him to do that in the first couple of rounds. Feel him out, see what you're working with. But at some point, he had to know on the outside, this dude's always going to outwork me. So what? I got to do something.
Right. In regards to the aftermath of that fight, or even during the broadcast, something obviously very significant happened, at least in terms of publicity. They gave Terrence Crawford some attention and even acknowledged the WBO title for the first time in a long time. What is that?
Not all the way through the broadcast, though. I mean, there was once they put up a graphic listing the other champions at welterweight, and there was no Crawford or WBO belt. But then they did show him that he was in the arena, and then they mentioned him a few times. And I think that's because they know that Crawford is probably looking at the end of his relationship with Top Rank. Mm-hmm. But it's not officially over. He's still a top-ranked fighter. Now, if he was actually a free agent and in the building, he'd have been on every graphic, and they would have invited him to the broadcast booth to talk this potential matchup up, this potential super fight. Mm-hmm. But they're not at that stage yet. He's still technically, contractually, a top-ranked fighter. So he was just there as a boxing fan, right, just to enjoy himself. But who knows what conversations were had, once the cameras went off.
Right. But I think that was great. I think it was great that he showed up.
Yeah, it's encouraging. I'm glad he was there. That's what fighters should do. It's not really in Bud's character to pull a Muhammad Ali and be loud, or Antonio Tarver. When Antonio Tarver was chasing that Roy Jones Jr. fight, he would go to Jones's fight and he would crash the press conference and say, I want you, Roy. Why you scared? Why you running from me? What do I got to do? Do I got to go and piss on your lawn? Well, I'm pissing on your lawn. Let's fight me, and he got it. He wasn't just talking. He really wanted that fight. He really believed in himself. And that's great when fighters are like that, but that's really the rare fighter. We can't expect everybody to be a showman, like that. It would be cool, but it's Crawford's a little more laid back like that. And it's encouraging that he was there, and they put him on camera, and occasionally they mentioned his name as a potential fight for Errol Spence. But we're still far away from that fight happening.
So do you think that Crawford fights maybe Sean Porter before he fights a Spence?
I don't know. If the money's right, yeah, I could see that fight happening. But isn't Porter? Didn't the WBC install Porter as the mandatory, or was it the IBF? One of those sanctioning organizations installed him as the mandatory. So that rematch could happen.
Right.
If you're Porter, maybe you want that because you feel you beat Spence the first time, you want to fight for those titles. You want those titles. He actually held both those titles at one time. Be great for him to win them back. Although Porter versus Crawford, and Porter going for the WBO title, that's not bad. I like the matchup because it's different. We haven't seen it. I mean, at this stage. Crawford's welterweight title run has been so disappointing. I'd be happy to see Crawford fight Ugas or a young gun, like Jaron Ennis. And I think, didn't Oscar De La Hoya toss out there that Virgil Ortiz Jr. would fight him? Yeah, I think he talked about it. I think it's too soon for Ortiz Jr. and Ennis, but at this stage, I'm so sick of seeing Crawford in with fringe contenders and has-beens, I want to see him in with a fresh body. See what happens, And here's the thing. I do know with Porter and Ennis and Ortiz, they'll take it to him. It's just how they are. It's how they're wired that way. So I can see that.
I mean, what do you think the likelihood is, though? Because obviously it's been, widely reported already that Crawford's contract with Top Rank is up sometime next fall. Who knows if there's any extension on it in terms of because of the pandemic.
Listen, the only way there would be an extension is if they could somehow work out a deal for Crawford to fight Manny Pacquiao. If that deal that was supposedly on the table for him to go to the Middle East, if they get the same terms of that deal, I don't know how true all that stuff was.
Yeah.
But if that deal is back on the table and in the running for the spring, okay, I could see that happening, Otherwise, I think Crawford, he jets. Whether or not he has to wait until October or not, that's the question. Or maybe he gets his release from Top Rank. Maybe they work out a deal. He just buys himself out like Floyd Mayweather did all those years ago. It only took, I think Floyd bought himself out for $750,000.
Right.
Al Heyman paid that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Later, dude.
Right. Right.
This has been real. I think I can promote myself better, but
he was right.
Crawford, yeah, Mayweather was right, but Crawford's not Mayweather. He doesn't have that flair. Mayweather's a boxing kid. Mayweather grew up with an uncle and a father, who were professional boxers, and that uncle Roger had that flair. He knew how to get on fans' nerves in order to sell more tickets. Now, he did it by being the Mexican assassin and wearing the sombrero in Los Angeles when he fought a Mexican. That was kind of the extent. And he always talked shit to everybody. And it made, it spiced up his fights, as a matter of fact. I remember when Mayweather fought Pernell Whitaker, and they were going back and forth. And I wasn't a Pernell Whitaker fan when Whitaker was a lightweight. I thought he was boring. But for that fight, I knew the Black Mamba's reputation, and they were talking so much shit that I was into that fight. And it was actually, by Mayweather standards, it was pretty entertaining. It was an entertaining 10-rounder. This is before Mayweather won his first world title at lightweight. And then, I'm sure you guys have seen interviews with Floyd Mayweather Sr. He talks a good game. And as a trainer, he was out there and talking. When he was training Oscar De La Hoya or Francisco Bajado, I've been around Mayweather. He would come to LA and train Francisco Bajado. And he was like that when there's no cameras around. He's talking shit to Bajado. Like, I'm going to make you puke. I'm going to make you throw up. Come on, hit these mitts. Come on, show me something, young man. He would talk shit, and fuck. That poor kid was, kind of mentally not all there. He was, shit, some days he would be dejected, man, because this old guy had all this energy. But part of it is if he knew he had an audience, even if it was me and Steve Kim watching him, he's going to make it into a show. So Mayweather had that. He kind of came up. He knew what to do with, okay, I know how to get under people's skin. I know how to talk a good game and all that. I don't know if Crawford's like that, we'll see what kind of fit, I think Top Rank has done a good job with Crawford. I think Top Rank has done as good a job as Top Rank can do with Crawford. Let's see what the PBC can do with Crawford. At the very least, the PBC can give him worthy challengers, worthy challenges, and they can make for big events. And maybe that's all he needs to do at this point. Maybe Crawford is not Sugar Ray Leonard. He's Marvin Hagler.
Right.
Marvin Hagler did not cross over until he fought Duran and Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard. And those were his big fights. And when he was fighting Mustafa Hamsho, who cares? Twice. Fought Hamsho twice. Right. Sanctioning body mandatories. And, the tall guy from South America, his name escapes me. Fulgencio something.
Right.
I think he fought that guy twice. Whatever. No, my point is, who cares? Nobody. And he was good. He was a badass, but he just systematically broke those dudes down. And he was the undisputed middleweight champion. He was pound for pound one of the best. But who cares? You need a dance partner, and you need somebody who's going to bring some pizzazz, you know. And so Duran brought that with his machismo, and Tommy Hearns brought it by being the hitman with just his reputation, and his genuine belief that he was going to knock out the middleweight champion. Right. People believed it, you know. And then Sugar Ray, he's a showman, you know, and he brought Hollywood to that. Like, he made that an event, you know. So some guys, they just need that, you know. They can become legends and they can become superstars, but they're not going to do it on their own. I think maybe that's Crawford. And I say that with the utmost respect. Mm-hmm. If I compare somebody to Marvelous Marvin Hagler, I'm being respectful. So,
right.
I'll put that out there to Crawford and to Crawford, Team Crawford, and to his trainer. You know, shouts out to Omaha, Nebraska. and you know, to nutcake fans that just want to say, you know, you're a hater and want to start shit. No, I have the utmost respect for Crawford. I enjoy watching him fight. I just think he's one of those guys. He has to have, you know, the fights against Spence, against Pacquiao. If you can get a Porter, Keith Thurman, I'd like to see that. Crawford Thurman, that's a good fight.
Yeah, I still think Thurman has enough left in the tank to give a competitive fight. Yeah, Thurman's
dangerous for anybody. I mean, no one's going to have their way with Keith Thurman. And it's like Thurman's kind of got that thing where people hate him. People hate Thurman, like something. They don't like his look. Being a mixed dude, being a biracial dude, white and black with a ponytail, and
he's got that Zen attitude too.
What was that?
He's got like that Zen attitude about him.
That freaks people out.
It does.
In the wrong way. Yeah, he's kind of hippie-ish and kind of alternative, and he's not like street. You know what I mean? And he's not trying to be swaggy like Danny Garcia. He's not like that, and they don't know what to think of it. So it's funny. It's like they don't like him, and then like a lot of folks dismiss him, like he's garbage. You know, oh, Pacquiao whooped his ass. I'm like, no, that was a competitive fight. Yeah. It was very close. You know, and his resume is one of the strongest in the 147-pound division. But it's funny. I'll hear Jaron Ennis and Virgil Ortiz Jr. Clarissa Shields has said, "I'll fight Keith Thurman." Clarissa Shields has said, "I'll knock Keith Thurman out." And people don't check. They don't get mad about it. It's funny. It's not like when Ronda Rousey said she'll beat Floyd Mayweather in an MMA bout. Dude, like Clarissa Shields says, "I'll whip Keith's ass in a boxing match." And folks are like, "Yeah, you might knock him out." Yeah, fuck Keith. Like, but that can be, he can use that to his advantage. You know what I mean? He could be that dude, like, you know, Hector Camacho, like they want to see him lose. So if Crawford were to fight Thurman, I mean, I think people who are not normally Crawford fans would probably root for him because they can't stand Thurman for whatever reason.
Right.
You know, but it would be a fun fight. I mean, I like the build up to that because Thurman can talk. He's a little bit different with his trash talking game, but he can talk. And, if you look at their resumes, and they're both really solid fighters. Interesting style matchup because Thurman's got power. You know, he moves a lot. He used to be out there a hunter and he tried to knock you out, and now he's power pot shot on the fly. He's moving and boom, and then he's out and all. And he's vulnerable. And anybody who gets him to the body, he can't hide it. He gets hit and he's like, oh, you know. But he gets through it. You know, he survives those body shots. So that would be fun. I would be totally into that fight. I'd be totally into that matchup.
You mentioned, Dougie, you mentioned earlier, tall guy as a descriptive word. Also on that card was a 6'6", 154-pounder, Sebastian Fundora, who gets who gets the 16th win of his career with the second-round TKO over Habib Ahmed. I mean, what do you think about this kid, Dougie?
I think he's right outside of the top 10 at 154 pounds, which is a pretty deep division. Pretty strong division. There's a lot of up-and-comers in the 154-pound division. People talk to me all the time on Twitter. Even today, somebody was asking me about Israel Madrimov. You know, what do you think about this guy? I'm like, have you seen him do sambo? Have you seen him dance? Have you seen him do whatever? And I'm like, yeah, he's an athlete. He's got rhythm. He's able-bodied for sure. Obviously, you know, he's one of these Uzbekistan amateur standouts. You know, there's a lot going for him. he still needs to develop, as a professional. A guy I'm familiar with out here, Sergey Boychuk, he was supposed to fight Brandon Adams this past Thursday, got the COVID. So, he's whatever. He's recovering now, but hopefully he's back soon on some kind of platform, maybe Ring City, USA, maybe against Brandon Adams. That's a great test. That's a test. If Boychuk is able to beat somebody like Brandon Adams, he's real. Maybe he's a fringe contender, but that's how I view Fundora. I view him I view him like Boychuk. I view him like Madrimov. And he's going to get a lot of attention because he's freakishly tall and rangy, and I'm happy for him. I saw him years ago training up at the Summit. He used to be with Ben Lira. Lira would take him up to spar with Abel Sanchez's guys. So I saw him spar with you guys familiar with Soro? Is it Michel or Michael Soro from France?
French guy, yeah.
Yeah, he's good. He's a veteran, and he's a good athlete, and he's got skills. He can handle himself. He can handle himself with anybody because he's a giant praying mantis. But what I'm noticing more and more is better fundamentals and better technique, and he's getting more leverage on his shots now, and he can hurt guys. So I want to see him. Yeah, I want to see him in with better and better competition. Right. And hopefully he'll continue to raise his game. But I like what I see.
Right. Also on that card, Joseto Lopez gets the 10th round TKO over Francisco Chia Santana. These two guys obviously very familiar to the Southern California boxing scene.
Sure. Great guys. Both really nice guys. Really cool guys. Smart guys. Real gentle personalities outside of the ring. And then they get in the ring and they're just warriors.
What do you think about this scrap, Dougie?
Yeah, I mean, I knew out of the two of them that Lopez was fresher. Lopez is he's fought a bit of a higher caliber of opposition more consistently than Santana, and he's had higher highs within his professional career. I think he was developed a little bit better as a prospect by Thompson Boxing. I think he's done well. He did well, when he was a Thompson Boxing fighter fighting on Golden Boy cards, and he's done well with the PBC. I think the PBC has done well by him. And I think his matching up, he used to be trained by Henry
Ramirez.
Henry Ramirez, yeah. Now he's with Robert Garcia. And he's, I don't know how, if you know about Robert Garcia's compound in Riverside, but it's like a dorm house. Yeah. So a bunch of fighters, they live there and they just train.
Yeah, the backyard. They train in the backyard. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a little hangar in the backyard, and there's I think 3 rings, 2 rooms, 3 rings.
Yeah, they just extended it recently. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you are Lopez's weight, if you're a welterweight, there's Virgil Ortiz Jr. there to work with. There's Jose Ramirez.
Mikey.
Yeah, there's Mikey. There's literally, the best sparring you could possibly have. And you're training around nothing but up and comers. They're all super hungry and they all motivate each other and they're like a big family. So he was going to be ready. I think I visited in February. I think I visited in late February and did something on, it was supposed to be for the magazine. Actually, it was before, it was going to be before Virgil Ortiz's first fight before it got postponed, which was going to be in March sometime. And Lopez was there. He's been training all year, so I knew he'd be sharp. I was a bit surprised that he caught Santana in the first round. Looked like Santana would be able to compete because he rocked Lopez in the same round. And I thought Santana was showing his veteran savvy halfway through the fight. And, he was blocking punches. He was trying to walk him down. He was trying to counter punch. He had his moments, but, over the second half of the fight, just the punch resistance wasn't there. And he wasn't able to defend himself. And the fight needed to be stopped way before it was stopped. It shouldn't have gone past 8 rounds. Got really uncomfortable in the 9th round. when he got dropped and when he staggered, the way he staggered back to his corner was very painful to watch. It's really scary. And I know there's a lot of anger at his corner. And I understand that, but to be quite honest, it's the rare corner that's going to be not going to be emotionally involved to the point where they're delusional and get over emotional and knows when to stop the fight. There's not a lot of Eddie Futches out there that are going to be, going to keep their heads and keep their poise. And that's why we have a referee. The referee is impartial. The referee is not on either team. And, the thing is when you're the trainer in the corner for a fighter, you're like a family, and their pride is all tied up into this, and they've been through trials and tribulations to get together, and they want to be supportive. It's crazy. It's crazy to the outside viewer. It is. It's sick. You're like, stop it. You guys getting hurt, but they're like, no, they're always going to believe, and that's why the referee has to be the adult, has to be the professional, and stop it. On the advice of the ringside doctor, or just on their, what they see right before them. And I think referee Neil Young, he failed to do that.
It's funny because in the space of a week, we had Daniel Dubois got shit for, kind of tapping out during the fight. And then this week we're kind of telling corners, like, what the hell are you doing? He shouldn't really, in my opinion, come out for the 10th. It's not nice when you see the corner's braver than the fighter and he just throws him back out.
There's a saying that, when you see that, people say, boy, that's a brave corner. And that's an insult. Somebody didn't understand that on Twitter. I put that out there. It's like, this corner's braver than him. And they're like, don't compliment the corner. I'm like, that's not a compliment. The corner is not supposed to be brave at all. They're not fighting. That's the point. The people who aren't fighting shouldn't be brave. You're not in there. That's the whole point. Like, only the fighter is allowed to be brave, not the trainer, not the referee, certainly not the ringside doctor. Crap, you made an oath, man. You're supposed to safeguard health, supposed to save lives. Can't be. Fans can be bloodthirsty. They can. That's part of the boxing's attraction. But when somebody takes a knee at the end of a fight after 8 or 9 rounds or whatever, and their eyes been swelling up, and you can tell by a fighter's reaction where it's more than just a punch, because they're used to being punched in the face, right? When a fighter reacts the way Daniel Dubois did, something happened. He felt it. He felt something break or a nerve pinch or something like that. It wasn't the same as all those other punches to that same area. It'd been happening round after round after round. So you got to give the fighter a benefit of the doubt. I mean, seriously, especially if you've never seen him do that before. It's like, I don't know. But whatever.
Right. Absolutely. Speaking of this weekend, this upcoming Saturday, the 12th of December, from the Wembley Arena in London on DAZN, for the WBA, IBF, WBO, and IBO heavyweight titles of the world. Anthony Joshua goes up against Joshua-Pulev. With this fight was supposed to happen.
Social media is critical, man. It's hypercritical. So many people are just. I'm sorry, you.
I think we cut out, right?
Down. Yeah, you froze, and I just saw you. It was still pictures of you, and you were speaking really slow and drawn out. But I could tell you were talking about Anthony Joshua.
Oh yeah, because it stopped and it froze on us, but then it felt like you were just sitting there, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah. I'm so awed by this matchup. I'm speechless.
What do you think about the matchup?
I'm not super into it. It's Ring Magazine's #1 heavyweight versus our #10 heavyweight. So it's kind of like, when, Crawford fighting Kell Brook, it's like, okay, it's happening. I'll watch. I'm a fan of Crawford. I have respect for Brook, and that's how I feel about AJ. I'm a fan. I'm a Joshua fan, and I respect Kubrat as a veteran, as somebody who's been to the big dance. Kubrat made an aging Vladimir Klitschko look pretty good because he was aggressive and very hittable. He was just like straight up in the air and rushing in, and he was getting clipped with Ray Robinson-esque hooks, but he would get up. He had balls. So it's interesting. The fight will be interesting to me if he can take Joshua's power. Then what? and he's aggressive.
Right.
How does Joshua react? Does he go to safety first? Because that's the big question about Joshua coming off that rematch with Andy Ruiz Jr., right? And there's two camps. My camp is kind of glass half full. My camp is, he was knocked out. He was stopped badly in their first fight. And he came right back. He didn't do the whole thing, but let me get a tune up. Let me get my mojo back. Let me have time to recover psychologically as well as physically. He went straight into the immediate rematch, right? And I thought if he does that, then he's gonna box smart because he's an Olympic gold medalist, man. They're smart. That's how they're gonna be. They're gonna be analytical about this. And he did more so than people thought he would. He was just stick and move, stick and jab. That was the tactic. Although I thought he tried to check Andy's chin a few times. And he landed monstrous punches that would have knocked out a lot of guys. But Andy has got a shock absorber for a face and a chin. He didn't budge. And the thing is if you're in against the immovable object, it's probably not a good idea for you to be the irresistible force unless you really believe in your chin and your power. You know what I mean? Right. And obviously Joshua had some doubts in that fight against that opponent, right? So he just got through that fight. Now the question is, will he do that from now on? And the glass half empty people are saying, oh, that's how he is from now on. It's going to be like Hector Camacho after the Edwin Rosario fight. He's going to be safety first. It's going to be a stinker. Well, I say time will tell. Let's see what happens. So that's one of the storylines for me, at least going into this matchup. What happened? What happens if he can't hurt Pulev, or if he drops Pulev and Pulev pops up and like, all right, I'm going for it, and goes right to him? How does Anthony Joshua react? Does he say, bring it on? Or does he like, oh crap, not this again, and stay away, man, So we'll see. To me, that's the main intrigue of the fight.
I mean, assuming AJ as a favorite does take the win and retain his titles this Saturday, Dougie, what do you think is more likely, that he faces Tyson Fury in his following fight, or Tyson Fury gives Deontay Wilder the trilogy rematch? That's
going to be the question about Fury is going to be decided in arbitration, maybe in court, or maybe they work something out, but it could become a legal issue between Team Fury and Team Wilder and their representatives. And on Joshua's side, if he beats Pulev, well, he took care of his IBF mandatory, but then there's a WBO mandatory. And that could become an issue if Alexander Usyk wants an immediate shot at the champ, at the unified title holder. And he may want that. He may not want to risk it against another heavyweight. I mean, against Derek Chisora, he realized, hey, I'm not a big heavyweight. He looked real uncomfortable for 4 or 5 rounds. So if you're going to lose for a lot of money with almost all of the marbles on the line, right? Don't fight some other guy. And I know there's some talk about, well, maybe Usyk versus Joe Joyce. And then the winner of that gets the shot at the mandatory shot at the WBO title. I would appreciate that, and I would support that. And I think that's the best case scenario, because I want to see Fury versus Joshua. I don't want to have to wait for Joshua to get past Usyk and then see that fight. As it is, the way I see it, we don't see Fury versus Joshua until the second half of 2021, if at all. I also think that this is a fight that needs to have a big audience, a big crowd.
Right.
So, hopefully it takes place during a time where the COVID is under control enough to lift enough restrictions for, if not 100% capacity at a major stadium, then close to it.
Right.
In Saudi Arabia.
Oh God, that pissed me off, man. And I know it's prize fighting, it's money. If they put up $150 million,
yeah,
what do we expect the promoters and the platforms and the fighters who are going to get most of it? Fighters are going to get the most of it. Boxers, as far as combat sports go, the elite boxers, they get the biggest piece of the pie. I get it. Why not? Why not get set for life by one fight? I understand.
Right.
But I don't like it, because I really feel like, an all British showdown like that, the fight should take place in the UK. Should take place in England somewhere.
Yeah.
Should take place in a soccer stadium in England.
Yeah.
Soccer stadium.
I think we'll see 2. I think the first one will probably be in Saudi Arabia, so they can line their pockets, and then the second one in like 2022 will be.
You're smart, man. Yeah, you figured out the boxing business. That makes business sense, doesn't it? It makes us. Let's all get money, and then let's do the rematch. In front of an audience, and we'll make money again.
Yeah.
But let's make this guaranteed money now during a pandemic, and we can do that over here.
Yeah.
Right.
That's interesting.
It always comes down to the dollar most of the time, doesn't it, Dougie? Most of the time. Also, this upcoming weekend from the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut, Chris Colbert, 14-0, goes up against Jaime. How do you say this, Mike? Jaime Arrobleda, I believe. It's for the.
You're the Hispanic.
Probably butchered that, but everyone else is. So
yeah. I gave it. Where's he from, Mike?
Panama.
Yeah.
Panama. Okay. And this is for the interim WBA super featherweight title. Well, Dougie, I mean, what do you think about, Chris Colbert up until this point, at 14-0?
Good talent. He's precocious. He had a really good amateur career. He's a smart kid. He can be exciting. He can also stink it out, but I won't hold his last performance against him that much because the dude that he fought, was that Jezreel Corrales?
Yeah.
That guy's got a funky style, man. I think it's hard to look good against that dude.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I was impressed that he handled a guy with that much experience and with that awkward a style. It speaks to his amateur background and his own just intelligence. A huge offensive force, but he's a really good ring general for his age. And so maybe he's for the purists or whatever. But when we did a Ring magazine cover of like the future stars in the sport, he was on the cover along with Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia and Virgil Ortiz Jr. and Jaron Ennis. And, these are guys who were under 25 who it looks like the sky might be the limit, but you never know. Daniel Dubois was on that cover too.
Right.
But he'll come again. I mean, even if, you suffer a loss at his age, especially as a heavyweight,
right.
You've got plenty of time. All these guys have plenty of time. I'm interested in how do they build up a big fight for Colbert, and do they push an eventual showdown between Colbert and Tank Davis, who has the full WBA title at that weight.
Is it Colbert or is it Colbert? Because I've heard.
I'm calling it. Yeah, it might be Colbert. I'm thinking.
Okay.
Stephen Colbert. They're spelled the same. Though.
They spelled the same. That's why. But I wasn't
sure. If you want to be fancy, you say Colbert. Yeah, Colbert. Whatever.
It's one of those. I don't know. I thought about the Stephen Colbert thing too, but I think in the past they say Colbert. But.
I've heard it both ways. I'm just saying that out there, but I probably messed that up.
It's funny because Colbert had that kind of that push because of the Netflix documentary he was in when he was known as little B-Hop.
Yep.
But they kind of never really capitalized off that. Maybe he was still fresh and a little bit young, but he's kind of flown under the radar ever since then.
He has. I'm not quite sure why that was. I think maybe early in his pro career, maybe he was unattached for a while.
Right.
And that it doesn't matter, what your background is, how good you are, what your amateur background is. When you try to promote yourself, it's tough. Even in the social media age, it's tough. And, Devin Haney found that out. Saddam Ali tried to be his own promoter right out of the amateurs. And it's like nobody paid attention, and it was hard. He was finding it hard to put on shows himself or to get on other cards. So you got to, at least early on yourself with a promoter who is also aligned with a major broadcast partner.
Right. We saved the best for last for you, Dougie. Mayweather versus Logan Paul. What do you think?
I have no thoughts on it. I didn't know who the Paul brothers were before they got involved with boxing. I know nothing. I'll talk about them, and my daughters cringe, and they say, don't say good things about them. They suck. I'm like, really? What did they do? And they're like, oh, haven't you seen their YouTube channel? They're meatheads. They're like frat boys. I'm like, are frat boys that bad? I just know that they have Ohio roots, and I have Ohio roots, so I like people from Ohio. their affiliation with boxing, when I see the boxing related interviews with them, they seem, I don't want to say like humble, but they at least seem down to earth. They don't seem like total jerks. Mm-hmm. But that's all I've seen of them. I'm not gonna waste my time looking up whatever they do on YouTube. I don't get that stuff. I'm 50 years old. I'm not gonna pretend to be up with all this stuff. I'm not against these boxing exhibitions, but I like it the way it was with Tyson and Jones because it's two legends. And at one point, that was a fight that they were talking about when both were still in the game, and when Roy was still on top of his game as the WBA heavyweight champ in 2003. They were talking about that. So that fight was kind of interesting. If Tyson were to do an exhibition with Evander Holyfield, Tyson Holyfield 3, yeah. Am I going to be really excited about it? No, but I'm going to watch it, is same thing. Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler, if they get in there, I don't care if it's a 4-rounder. I'm going to watch it because of who they are. And they're sharing the ring. And I know they're both great, all-time great fighters. Oscar De La Hoya against Shane Mosley, right? That third fight. It's not a third fight. It's an exhibition. But they have history going back to when they were kids. And Oscar's getting into shape. And Shane always stays in physical condition. And they're not as old as Tyson and Jones. So it might actually be okay. Might be a little bit more active, even if they're doing 2-minute rounds and it's just no more than 8 rounds, which is probably what it should be, right? So they don't get hurt. Sign me up for that. It's fun. I tell you what, it helps us. Like our site almost crashed. We had so there's public interest in it. Wonder if they're using, sometimes if they it'll mess up the connection. I hope they ain't doing that. I told them I was going to be on a podcast. I should have told them it was yours. I told them, hey, it's the last round. Girl, my daughters respect that. They don't respect the Paul brothers, but they respect certain podcasts.
We got you.
No, but what I was saying is it doesn't hurt us. It doesn't hurt the website. It increases our traffic.
Right.
It's like it'll be like a huge event.
Right.
And we've had unseasonably high traffic because of the pandemic and all of these fights and fighters having their fights postponed to the end of the year. We've had unseasonably high site traffic, page views and unique users on the website. The most we've had in several years, as a matter of fact. And that so we had record numbers for November and we're trending towards record numbers in December because of all these fights in a row. And even going into the new year, we've got Ryan Garcia versus Luke Campbell. And so if Mayweather is fighting one of the Paul brothers in February, it doesn't hurt us. It helps us because everyone's going to be talking about it. If we put anything related to the fight on the site, they'll glom on. It doesn't matter what it is. Put anything on there. So it's clickbait. It don't hurt us. I don't like it. I don't like a boxer versus somebody who's not a boxer, right. Even if it's an exhibition, because to me, it doesn't seem real. To me, it's not competition because the boxer is going to kick anyone's ass in a boxing match. And I know this is Logan Paul, right? That's the older one, right?
The older one. Right.
So he's 0-1. That's his record. So I don't know. So prior to this, Floyd fought like a featherweight kickboxer in a boxing match, right? And prior to that, he fought an MMA superstar, an MMA champion, but a guy who's 0-0 as a boxer. Right. This is worse. This is a lot worse than Conor McGregor because McGregor at least was experienced as a combat artist, combat sports.
Yeah.
Fight,
some background, right?
Championship level, right? And this guy is a big kid who, who's just taken up boxing. So you can't. So automatically, it's got to be a fake fight,
right?
Otherwise, it's just this little dude beating up on this big dude. I mean, there's people who want to see that. I'm not interested in it because if it doesn't happen, it means what I suspected about the Conor McGregor fight, which is that it was. Mayweather had to carry him.
Yeah, definitely.
And I've never seen the fight. I only watched the first round and then I watched the ending. But after the first round, I'm like, it's comical. I'm just looking at Conor McGregor's form. Like he doesn't have it. He doesn't have basic boxing fundamentals. And he's wading into Mayweather, and Mayweather's recognizing, oh, my God, I got to carry this dude or we get no show. Mm-hmm. But we did that. He just bided his time until McGregor's like totally exhausted, and then he takes him out, you know. But that's not a real contest. If one guy can't be himself in there, I'm not saying that McGregor, it was scripted and McGregor agreed to take a dive. I don't think that happened. You don't have to with McGregor's experience. So, So anyways, with Logan Paul, if he doesn't beat the shit out of Paul in 2 rounds, then he's holding back, and it's not real at all.
Right. Right. I mean, what does Mayweather? What's the quote that he said in the past? If it makes dollars, it makes sense. Sure. So it's exactly what it is. Yeah. It's an event.
Duh.
You know? Yeah.
We all know that.
Yeah.
We all live in a capitalist society. Like, no shit makes dollars and makes sense. No fucking shit.
But you know what kind of makes me laugh sometimes, or at least since this was announced the other day. There's obviously a lot of fighters, a lot of serious boxers in the game right now who they feel disrespected by an event like this, and they're tweeting or posting about it, that it's, they shouldn't be happening, which, I think any legitimate boxing fan understands their gripe. But you can't tell me that if that boxer who's voicing that opinion gets offered a spot on that card for that amount of money, they're going to turn it down.
Yeah, no, they'll take that. Of course they will. Just for the exposure.
Right.
Just for the exposure. Oh my God, man. People will know who the hell you are.
Right.
I mean, and people are surprised that Tyson Jones did $1 million+ pay-per-view. People know who Mike Tyson is. Mm-hmm. People know who Roy Jones is, but especially Tyson. That was all about Mike Tyson. Yeah. Everybody in the world knows who Mike Tyson is. He's the most famous boxer since Muhammad Ali. Mm. He's as iconic as Ali was, as Rocky Marciano was, as Joe Louis was, as Jack Dempsey was. He's that iconic. Mm-hmm. During his prime, he captured the zeitgeist of his era. He just epitomized the 80s. And he was a bona fide celebrity in the 90s and 2000s and into the present.
Right.
I could fly you guys over any part of the world and drop you off in a parachute. And if there's people around, doesn't matter if they speak English or not, you could say Mike Tyson, you know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Think about that. Like, Mayweather's not there. Even Pacquiao, they're not there like Tyson level of recognition, but they're up there. So if Pacquiao was to fight Conor McGregor and you can get on that undercard as a young up and comer, man, you better take if they pay you $1, take that. Because just being part of the promotion, people are gonna know who you are. People who don't follow boxing are gonna find out who you are. That's like being in a movie. Okay? Mm-hmm. Like if you are on the Mayweather Paul undercard, if you're part of that, that's like having a cameo in a movie. That's how I see these things. It's not boxing at all. It's just entertainment in the context of boxing. It's entertainment starring a boxer and starring a YouTube personality. Mm-hmm. It's a show. It's not boxing. It's a boxing story or whatever. And if you can get on there in a legitimate fight, you have a cameo in that movie. You're going to get exposure. It's going to help you out.
Right.
It's going to be like Ronda Rousey in those movies that she was in.
Mm-hmm.
And what was it? It
was a comedic. It was a comedy movie, wasn't it?
No, but there was some action movie.
Yeah,
a whole bunch of action.
Action stars. It was a remake of an old film.
Yeah. The
Expendables. I think it was the Expendables or something like that. For a lot of the old timers.
Was that it? The Expendables.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was it. That was good for her. You do that stuff. That's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not against it. I'm not into it though. I'm not into it.
No, we get it.
More into it. Honestly, I would be more into it if it was Mayweather. Mayweather Zab Judah again. Or, I don't know. Or Jose Luis Castillo. What's he doing? He needs the money, I bet.
Bring him back.
Bring him back, man. Antonio Margarito. There's a storyline. He said, "Yeah, you ducked me. Fight me, mother." motherfucker. And I'm bringing back Capetillo. And no, you can't check my gloves. Fuck you. Tell you what, we won't have VADA testing, and you don't check my gloves. Okay, how about that? Like, I'd be more into that, but whatever.
Right.
Like I said, I can't blame him for doing that fight. I can't blame him. It's all good.
Yeah.
Good. I know it's not. I know it's somehow it's going to be some kind of scripted thing because.
Yeah,
Paul doesn't want to get his ass kicked by a pipsqueak. Pipsqueak don't want to get hurt by a non-boxer. You don't want to get embarrassed. They're gonna do something.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy how you said it though, Dougie. How it's a movie and then people want parts in it, cameos and stuff. That's a good comparison. Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like boxing movies don't hurt the sport. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they help it. Like the Rocky franchise, like that helped. That gave boxing a boost, And other times it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect it at all.
Right.
I think like Creed. I think Creed won part of the Rocky franchise.
Right.
And, yeah, it was pretty cool. And then like the sequel, maybe it just didn't matter. It just came and went. And there've been some dumb boxing films or poor boxing films that, It doesn't hurt. Actually, those films help boxing a little bit because I remember they sponsored the Canvas. They actually sponsored some big events. So they actually gave those promotions some money. So it was helpful at least in that regard.
Dougie, did you hear the news about Glenn McCrory? He's coming back to fight Evander Holyfield.
Is that a bare knuckle?
It's on a bare knuckle card, but I believe they're going to wear gloves.
They'll have gloves. Yeah, whatever. Doesn't it seem like Holyfield would kick the shit out of McCrory?
That's what I think.
Isn't that
big drinker?
Yeah. Well, you can hear it by the way he talks. That's not all punches, man. You live that life. You burn the candle on both ends. You're gonna, you're gonna sound kind of sloshy, kind of sluggish. I like Glenn. I liked his commentary. I might be in the minority with this, but I like him. I remember him as an active cruiserweight. I like the dude. But, he was an overachiever, gutsy cat. But we're talking about the greatest cruiserweight of all time, in Holyfield. And Holyfield, he hasn't stopped working out. And, I'm sure he's had some special vitamins, throughout his career, whether it was as himself or Evan Field, so he's preserved in some ways now. I mean, doesn't it feel like that? Like Holyfield would just beat the fuck out of him? I don't know.
I agree.
I don't want to see that. Glenn seems like a nice guy.
I just worry that we're going to keep seeing these. Until someone gets hurt.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
I mean, honestly, I feel like we dodged a bullet and we got lucky with Tyson Jones. That Jones didn't get knocked out.
Right.
And Tyson didn't get so tired that he passed out or something, quit.
Right.
Like it wasn't, they kept their dignity. But I kind of feel like we got lucky. Yeah. But it's done such good business and it was produced so well and they got lucky with Snoop Dogg. I feel like, let's do that. And I don't blame them, I don't blame them for wanting to do something like that. But they do have to understand that it's always a risk with older fighters. And there's only one Mike Tyson. You got to remember that. There's only one Mike Tyson. What I said to you, that's not an exaggeration. We can fly to Africa and go to some village in Malawi and drive 2 hours away from, any kind of TV screen. You can go to a village where there's no electricity, no plumbing, no running water. People are living in little huts and there's dirt floors. And you can say, Mike Tyson. And they go, they know exactly. There's very few human beings alive on the planet with that type of name recognition. We have to remember that. It's not
Michael Jackson, Mike Tyson.
Yeah. But Jackson is dead. But Michael Jackson is dead.
Right.
Muhammad Ali is dead. They're no longer with us. Mike Tyson is with us.
Right.
So he can capitalize on that name recognition.
Right.
It ain't gonna be the same. Holyfield fought Mike Tyson, but he ain't Mike Tyson.
Right. Absolutely not.
It ain't gonna be as big. It ain't gonna be as big a deal.
Right. Man. Well, before we sign off here, Dougie, is there any upcoming holiday promos of the ring for this month, for Christmas?
Mike Tyson.
There it is.
Go to ringmagshop.com. You got to get this special. It is sensational. Oh, my God. So proud of it. Just relive it, man. Relive it all. It's all beautiful. It's all here. His whole career. Oh my God, there he is. Remember Don King? Remember him? He's a name. Don King's a bigger name than most of these fighters. This one is on sale. The Charlos. This is on sale now. Yep. If you're not a subscriber, if you're a subscriber, you got it, or you're gonna get it. And if you're not a subscriber, go to ringmagshop.com. The digital edition available now. Teofimo Lopez on the cover, and that's going to be on sale soon. Check out our special editions, though. The Manny Pacquiao special edition, forward by Larry Merchant. Good, great stuff. Very proud of these magazines, and you can buy them. You just go to ringtv.com, click on shop. You can buy whatever you want. Buy the ring mug. I don't have it with me right here. I'm usually drinking coffee, but I don't have it with me. But I love it. Makes you feel like you're the editor-in-chief of Ring Mag.
Absolutely. And also follow you on Twitter at Dougie Fischer, right?
Yep.
Dougie, before we let you go, since it's towards the end of the year, we've been asking all of our guests if you could give us your fight of the year, your fighter of the year, and your KO of the year. Obviously, so far.
Fighter of the year is either Teofimo Lopez or Tyson Fury. Close runner-up is my man Chocolatito, Roman Gonzalez. I'm always going to root for him. I'm always going to push him because he's the king. Win, lose, or draw, he's the king. If he ain't fighter of the year, then he's definitely comeback of the year. How about that? Chocolatito, comeback of the year. Fighter of the year, it's between Tyson Fury and Teofimo Lopez. I'm going to go with Teofimo Lopez because he beat a guy who's maybe a future Hall of Famer, definitely an amateur legend, a guy who's on the top of every pound-for-pound list, 3-division champion, lightweight champion. So, yeah. There's been a lot of them. Shit. I'm going to go with Tank because I've never seen Santa Cruz knocked out. And, I mean, I guess you could say, well, Tank's the bigger guy, but still, Leo's a badass. I don't think I've ever seen Leo really hurt. And he was knocked out in a way where I got real scared for him. Won to Davis. Davis scored the knockout of the year. It's hard to beat, right? You guys froze. Fight of the year?
Oh, we heard you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. On my end, you guys froze. Yeah. Yeah. Jose Zepeda, Ivan Baranchyk. I mean, how's that going to, how are we going to beat that? I don't know.
Forgot about that one.
The year's not over. Maybe we get something real special with one of these fights that are on tap.
Right.
The Japanese guys, Ioka and Tanaka, they're going to, that might be something, but I got a feeling, I feel safe by saying right now, Zepeda Baranchyk, man, that was a shootout. That was the wildest shootouts of all time.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good choice. Mike, go ahead. The usual, let our listeners, before we sign off here, where they can find us and follow us.
At The Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter. And obviously, tune in next week. We'll be reviewing the AJ Pulev fight and previewing the big Callum Smith against Canelo fight.
So once again, big thanks to our reoccurring guest, Dougie Fischer, the editor-in-chief of the Ring Magazine. And then for my co-host, Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.